So Jake, did you get the text about the bridge closure last,
Yeah,
Friday?
luckily I was out of town.
Oh, you were?
They're gonna send this to you,
Okay.
but this is, I need this back because I've got another one
Okay.
tomorrow, but that's all your section.
all.
That's it.
Okay.
So just, so you know, I think you can handle that, yeah.
Who am I speaking? Marina One building. Oh.
So,
Yep,
I
they
have
just
to look
had,
up.
they just
I
had
mean, I
a
can't keep
legislative
track of their
one-on-one
meeting.
meeting, so. And
think
so
the
Kate and I
last-
were on one camp.
We went up to Kingsley this weekend. And,
I heard, yes, how
oh
was it?
my gosh, it was so nice.
Was it nice? Yeah. You said they
It
did a
was
good job.
cool
Yeah.
because there was an east wind, so
Yeah.
they, when it was coming across, but then it laid down in the evening and it was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
It was so
But what
nice.
about the campground?
Oh, really nice.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Yeah.
There's 35 spots.
Yep.
And I think maybe 20 were full.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, total. Yeah, quite a few.
Well, shall we get going?
Yep.
Mike, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start our Bi-State Working Group meeting. Everybody get a chance to look at the meeting notes? Any changes to the meeting notes? Marla, you're okay with them?
Yes,
Okay, could we, do we have consensus that we can say that the notes are good?
Yes.
Yep. Marla said yes, I said yes. That's her committee, right?
I don't see Bob there, so I guess I must be whoever
You're,
county.
you're it.
Okay.
And Catherine?
Is she there?
Oh, no, I
Kiewit.
don't see, no, I don't see her.
Okay, all right, so let's keep going then. Mike, you want to take us through the previous action items? If you look at your notes, we started something kind of new. We can share here if you need to.
Let's see if I have-
Yep, so previous action items, one was the development of the amendment that we presented at last meeting. That has been submitted to for review. So I think the Arab contract, which is going to be the independent reviewer of that, is now in place, and that process has started. So it's in progress.
Kevin, when are we supposed to meet with AREP on that?
How is that's next week? Like Monday of next week?
Yeah, and then we're going to bring it to the bi-state right after that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that'd be the 17th,
That's
or
correct.
are we going to do a meeting prior to that?
Yeah, so let's put a new action item. There'll be an internal review on the 17th. And then we'll bring it back to the board
On the 18th.
on the next one.
On our next regularly scheduled meeting, what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is
Which
2
there's
weeks
some
from,
extra meetings
roughly
in
2
there,
weeks
yeah.
from
The
today,
next
right?
Bi-State Working Group meeting is on the 17th, and the
Okay,
next Board
then-
Commission meeting is on the 18th,
We're meeting with AREP before that meeting.
Monday.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking that our first meeting with ARIP is this Friday, the 7th, not the
Okay.
17th, but the 7th.
Okay. So you can put that on the action item if you want to. As an interim step.
All right.
Okay.
Tracking the progress of the biological opinion with ODOT, the meeting last week when they came, they're supposed to be here in the middle of October. So we will follow up in a couple weeks and see how that progress is and see if they've done that.
You know, if you would, I'd like for you to put their names on here.
We can do that.
And then there was a second piece to this, if I remember right. That after they drafted, it goes for review by somebody else and it gets signed off, and the commitment was by the end of December.
Correct.
Then we ought to have that on our tracking program too, so we don't lose that.
Okay. We'll add that. And then we created a little small committee that was working on the presentation and materials for the October 14th. I know they've met a number of times. I don't know if
Sure.
Mayor or
Is Christie on?
Christie or.
Christie's kind of in charge of us.
Yeah, she told me that she's not this morning.
Yeah, she's
She's not in charge of us. Well, you know, it's like herding cats, but
All
That's
she's
exactly
doing
what
her,
she said.
she's doing her best.
She's doing a great job. She just couldn't join us for this meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'll just talk about what we did. So we had our second meeting. And we have 10 panelists. Thought that's plenty. I think she is trying to get definite numbers from the lobbyists for exactly how many are going to be there, because they need that so that we can figure out how big a room we need, because there's other meetings going on at the Best Western that same morning. And so that was one thing we needed ASAP.
So who's got that action to get
Well-
with the lobby?
Well, Christie was going to call them.
We did get responses this morning.
Oh, you did?
from,
Okay.
From Brad.
Okay,
So we got 10 coming in from Washington at this time. And I want to say it was just a little bit below that for Oregon.
Oh, so we have more than early this morning.
Yeah,
There's
we
definitely
got
more.
some two updates on that, but it's very fluid, these things, it's almost better to kind of plan for more. Because granted, people may come or people may fall off. It just kind of.
and if I remember right, what I saw, Senator King will be here.
Yes, he will be.
Good.
As will Moss Brucker and Corey.
What about Rick Fry?
Good.
5 from up north will be coming down as well.
Oh, wow, okay.
Right.
So, we've got the panelists lined up. I think we're doing pretty good. The handout was in rough draft form. And we made some suggestions, and then we're gonna get that back, and I believe both you, Kevin, and Mike, Shannon will get copies of that, so you guys can give more input to the handouts. And then some posters with some pictures, and we kind of went through those and gave some suggestions, less verbiage, more picture kind of deal. We had the time frame on there, like we said, start at it was at 2022. We said, no, you need to start at 2017 at least, show that we've been working, a lot longer on this than just starting it this year.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that it says the start date is 2026 and then to 2030. I said we need at least a line at 2029, even if it's a broken line, saying that's really the target that we're trying to move this to. So those were a few suggestions that we had. But I think in general, we're looking pretty good. I think that some of the legislators were told 9 to 12, others might have been told 9 to 1, and that would depend on when the food is brought down. So we need to find out what time are they going to be there.
It
Are they
sounded
going to
like
be
there's
till
some
1 or
disagreement.
till 12?
No, I think originally and I believe this was on the Oregon side, that option for lunch from 12 on, like people some people would want to leave at noon to continue on with their day. So the lunch from 12 to 1 was optional. But
Okay.
it looked like from the last version, I saw that the lunch had been moved forward
To 11:30.
to 11:30 to take that into account.
Right,
Is there
so
some
it's
kind of
just kind of like,
program that's gonna go on while they're eating lunch, or are we just giving them lunch?
we're just giving them lunch, and the video will be played after the panel. So we'll do the tour first. And then, which will be go out to the bridge, come back, panel starts at 10:30 to 11:30. The video, which is 5 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever, that would be next. And then food will be brought basically right then.
Are all of these people that are coming, have we already talked to them like what we're doing today? Or is there new people?
So we've been keeping in touch with Dan Bates's team and with Brad Boswell's team. And so they're kind of our conduit to all of those state legislators.
Here's why I'm saying this. The panel, I think, is gonna be talking more from their personal point of view. Life without the bridge, the importance of having the bridge, that kind of stuff.
And the emergency responders will be there too, to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah. And that's good. So it shows people, yeah, we need a bridge. But where are we talking about? What's the plan going forward? How much money are we looking from the states? When do we need it? When do we communicate that to these people?
And so we were gonna have some of that regarding the money on this one pager, but then I think you guys gave some input that we don't want to get too specific. And I'm like, well, we need to show at least, if Senator King's gonna be here, we absolutely have to put down how much Washington's given us.
Yeah, so we talked this morning, we're gonna have the table in there of the funds that are been committed. And then we're just gonna have like a generic graphic that shows 95 million and here's the gap without any specifics to that we could then talk to as far as what the request would be from each state and what our goals would be from the feds,
But
because
when are we gonna talk about that?
Where's that on the agenda?
I don't know,
So how much time do you
We
think
need
we
to
need
add-
for that?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay.
And how about the state of the current bridge and its degrading? And if anything, we gotta go quicker than slower.
Yeah.
You know, we got great panelists talking about, we need a bridge. But it just seems like we're missing a big chunk here that we've got to convey to these guys. We get them one time like this.
How many of these people have we already talked to?
Legislators
Yeah.
over the last, well, between this year and last year, I would say 95% of them.
Have already been given the spiel.
But be careful, the ones that we did last year
Yeah.
without doing this year, they heard the old news,
Right.
and the old news
Update.
was much more relaxed than where we are today.
And there's been more
Mike?
progress.
Yes.
Mike, this is
Yeah.
Christy. Would it be good, Kate and I looked at the examples of the storyboards that are gonna be around.
Yeah.
And the language in the storyboards, it's, in my opinion, it's nice. I think we need to be a little bit more direct in it. And maybe instead of saying like, our bridge is degrading, we need to say we are rated 6 out of 100. And we're, maybe have a little bit harsher realities on those storyboards. So when the electeds are all sitting in the room, there's some very pointed statements of the problems of the bridge.
I agree with you, Christy, and I think pictures also really support that. And kind of the subliminal message that you want to say is, do you want to go across this bridge? Would you go across this bridge, kind of a thing, the way it's degrading to help that. But I'm just thinking, maybe it's during lunch, you got them throwing stuff in their face and they can't talk real well. That's the time to hit them with reality. And maybe it's just me, but I'm cool saying Washington stepped up 75 million. We're looking for 125, and 200, and we'll try and make up the difference. I think from that last discussion we had, they kind of appreciate understanding,
Where we are.
what are you asking us for? This is a nice lunch, but okay, give me the
Give me the
punchline.
ask.
Okay.
And I think that the ask at the end, like, maybe we do the film, which 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and then we do the ask, which is 5. But I think that the degradation of the bridge is, we should be talking about that when they are standing underneath the bridge. I mean, unless it's just so noisy that you can't talk at all. I mean, they need to be able to look at it and you say, this is so old, it's a number 6, it's blah, 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 while we're out.
I think you can try that, but I think we're gonna need a couple of presenters at the bridge. Because you're gonna have too big of a crowd for them to really be able to hear
Did you
you
hear it?
talking. So
Are
if
we
you
gonna
took,
have them in a room at the very start?
Yeah, there'll be, I believe, I can't remember, Christy, are we meeting here at the port office or were we gonna meet at the Best Western and go out?
No, we're going to meet at the port office and walk
Port
from the port office over to the Best Western. So there'll be a good 20-minute
Under
chunk
the bridge.
of time to talk, in the port office and then meander under the bridge. And so one of the things I thought of is, so there's one elected with some mobility issues. So John Mann is going to bring a gator for that person. And then, so I figured having John out there is going to probably be one of the best things because he can talk about all of the millions of dollars we keep having to put into this bridge because people keep running into the rails. They keep, the picture of the fruit truck breaking down, and they had to tow it off with a port truck. And, just those anecdotal stories, I think will be really helpful.
I agree with you, Christy. I think he could bring a lot of color commentary to the issue. We've just got to be real careful with him because he is so proud of that bridge. He's told legislators he could keep that sucker standing upright for the next 100 years. Well, that's not really the message we want to be told.
No, I think we just need to coach him into, here's all of the problems, and this
Yeah.
is what my crew has to focus on.
Yeah.
And it's a money suck for the port.
If we had, a couple of those easels or something out there as you walk by the bridge, if you had 2 or 3 photo collages out there that showed, the rusting gusset plates, the stuff that you just showed up on the screen,
Well, you're
So
you're
as-
either gonna have to have somebody standing out there
Hold it.
holding them the whole time.
That's the
Or-
issue.
What if we
If it's
did-
windy.
So what if we did 5 minutes here, the 5 minute presentation before we go out that gives them all the issues with the bridge, then
Yeah.
they go see the issues with the bridge.
Yeah,
Then we come back, everybody talk about how those issues affect them. And then you do the video and then we do the ask at the end.
perfect.
So
I like that.
And that way, because
I like
right here doing it, it's a little more concentrated on, they're focusing on what we're saying about the issues and then they can really go see them and.
I agree with all of that, but I also like to tell people up front, tell them the whole story up front also. So up front, here's what you're going to hear. We're going to have experts who are going to come in and tell you about the bridge's degradation. We're going to have local business leaders telling you about how important this is to the community and emergency services. And we're going to ask, and here's what we're going to be asking for, and here's why. And we're going to give you more detail later, but you're going to hear and ask for this money.
I like that.
I like
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah,
then
it's
you-
the outline of the day.
Yeah, and then the whole
Yeah.
day comes out, it's what
You
I say,
tell them again and then
Yeah.
write it down.
there's a better way to say that, though, yeah.
Did you hear all that, Christie?
Tell them what you're gonna tell them
Yep.
what, then tell them what you told them. That's how it goes.
Okay,
Yeah, I like that.
okay, let's keep going.
All right. And then we had the December trip, it looks like it's the 6th, 7th and 8th.
That's correct.
So I think that is set now. The agenda, I think, is still kind of getting roughed in as far as who we're gonna meet with and the timing of the meetings, but.
So I think
How's
the
it going?
reps that are going back, and I'll probably get this messed up, but from the Washington side, it's gonna be Jake and Marla. From the Oregon side, it's gonna be myself. And Mike is gonna be going for the project this time. And when we go again next year, maybe we switch it off and we do 2 and 1 from the other side, but we're trying to keep the cost down a little bit. So I guess, Mike, you need to work through and with Hal and figure out hotels and all the rest of that stuff.
Okay. And Genevieve, Patty and Genevieve can help with the hotel reservations and plane tickets.
Okay, does that pretty much cover the open items from last time?
Yes, that was it.
Did we miss anything? You guys point?
Alright.
Okay, let's go on to
So
the next.
I guess I have one question. So Institute contacted me and they wanted to know a little bit about the format. So I talked with Christie about that, but at the same time, it sounded like they, I volunteered some talking points for them. I'm wondering, are we helping, are we working with the other speaker, the other panelists to, they don't know the whole picture. They don't know why they're there, or maybe some of them do, some of them don't. Are we reviewing with them what message they're going to be delivering?
I was gonna collaborate with all of the speakers to make sure that we get bios and photos. And I was gonna kind of outline when we have a better idea of the legislators that are gonna be there. And kind of say like, here's the people. It's kind of the same thing, like you said, Arthur, like, here's what we're gonna do. Here's why you're here. And here's the ask that we're gonna do at the end, and kind of give them a real big layout of the day so that they kind of know exactly what's happening. And the last question that I have is Thorn Run said that they're telling the people that they have until 1 o'clock. And so I just need to figure out if the other side can stay till 1, and then we can ask panelists if they want to stay for lunch as well. So just trying to work out those details, but yeah, kind of the same thing with the ask the legislators is the panelists say, here's who's coming, here's why we've asked you, here's what you bring to the table, and go from there.
So
You know,
what my
Christie-
concern-
Christie, this last review we had on the phone before the meeting here. We made kind of a deal about it, and I think he picked it up. Was the overwhelming support we've got on both sides of the river for the new bridge. We're not arguing about where, what it looks like, what it's going to contain. We're not arguing it at all compared to something further downstream. I think we've got a wonderful opportunity here with these legislators on both sides to hear that from people in the community and not just us, spreading propaganda. It's, they're saying it. So I'm just wondering if you could weave that in and get both sides to really state, hey, they're fully committed to the bridge. They like it, however you want to do that.
Oh, absolutely. So what I will do is maybe later this afternoon or tomorrow morning, I'll put together maybe just a bullet point list of kind of points that we want to hit on. I'll send it to all of you if you all agree that that's kind of the direction we want to go. And then I can send that out to all of the panelists and then they can weave it into their stories.
Good.
So my concern, so I gave In Situ 4 bullet points that were customized for their situation. My concern is CEOs love to talk about their company, what their company does, why they're great, why that's wonderful. And I worry that we have 10 people sitting up front.
Yeah, we could burn
Each
through a
wanting
lot of
to-
time.
Each want to say, hey, I have this new fruit business and we're doing this in the valley. And it's really exciting and wonderful. And you guys should come and visit. And if
Yeah.
we
they
just
gotta
don't have
keep it-
time to do that. So
No.
how do we avoid that? Part of it's the format. I think, Kevin, are you the moderator? Is that Christy? You said someone was going to be moderator. Is that Kevin?
I was assuming that Kevin or Michael would be the appropriate person to moderate the discussion. And that's why I wanted to make sure we had bios from people. So that gets that whole piece out of the way. So we'll,
Yeah,
the bios will be sitting at the tables so that they can, look and see like who these people are. So they don't really need to go into the background. I think for example, the second half of Scott Webster's speech on the train tour about his people and how they use the bridge. I
Right.
think that's more of the focus that we want. And so yeah, I think giving them some kind of bullet points of these are the points we really want to drive home is that everyone wants New Bridge. All the communities are relying upon it. And if we don't, and if something were to happen to the bridge, it would affect Hood River a great deal, but it really affects the gorge.
so
And
Christy,
I think we need to give them a time limit too. I
Well-
think when we send that out, that we need to, you're not gonna have 10 minutes apiece.
here, you could either do it, go down the line, one at a time. Okay, give your talk, or you could do the moderator and you've got 4 questions you want to propose to the team. And as a moderator, you want to make sure that you're getting input from a lot of them. And after the 3 or 4 topics, everybody has had a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Agree.
That way you can control it a little better. I'm concerned if you go 1, 2, 3,
Yeah, but the
we're never
fourth
going to
one,
get
never
to number
the
7.
last one.
Yeah, it requires an active moderation.
Yes.
And have you guys done that before? There's a bit of a.
It's a
there's
little
bit
bit.
of
of
a
Yeah, I
process,
think-
right?
I think as long as there's a pre-call with each panel and we talk through those identified 4 to 5 questions, and in that pre-call with all panelists, you determine and relay back to the group, okay, you 2 are going to cover question 1, who's confident about question 2. So you make sure you have an even balance. And then, yeah, I mean, the actual panel itself is somewhat choreographed so that there isn't confusion about who's going to be picking up whatever question from the moderator.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make, Marla. Thanks.
Yeah.
Because, you think that people will just, it's just a panel, you just sort of show up and you just start talking and it can become a real mess really quickly.
And if we had an hour and there was only 3 people, that would be different. But
it's still, you
It's-
still you wanna be surgical, you want to get these points out in a way that looks natural, but is choreographed, as Marlon said. Matt, just this weekend, I was part of a panel, national panel in Portland, and they didn't tell us beforehand kind of what the format was, and so we sort of started going into a bio, and then the guy, oh, I don't want to hear about that, I want to hear about this, and it didn't look good, it didn't feel good, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing
Yeah.
there, so
So Christie,
let's avoid that.
if my state working group wants me to moderate it, I can certainly do that. But then I'll just schedule something with all of the panelists the day before with the questions. If there's going to be 4 questions that we work through, and then I can pick out each person that's going to speak to them, and then we can walk through that whole scene the day before with the panelists.
Is Marla, are you gonna be there? You unmute?
Yeah, guys, sorry, that delayed response was unintentionally suspenseful. Yes, I will be there.
We're all waiting.
Having the mayor of White Salmon being the moderator and someone who has a PR experience, can I nominate you?
I second the nomination.
Oh, boy.
It's
Be a lot better than
voluntold.
an engineer, that's for sure.
Yeah,
it's
I'm fine to do
voluntold.
that if that is helpful.
That's good. That's really good.
Marlon, then what I can do, this is Kevin, I can just help provide support for you, make sure everybody shows up, and we can talk through the questions beforehand, and so I'll be there as we come up to the preparation meeting. I'll work with you on that.
Okay, so the notes.
Okay,
need-
perfect.
Marla now is the moderator of the 14th.
Thank you for being voluntold for that, Marla. And so what I'll do is
Yeah, thank you, Marla.
I have lots
I'll
of
put-
experience doing this.
I'll put an email together for all of the panelists, kind of introduce them all to one another, kind of
Yeah.
put a background into why they're all being asked to do this, and then turn them over to you and Kevin for, this is the next steps and whatnot. So I'll help with that. I'll get that ball rolling.
Just figuring out what the
Good.
best questions.
Good. Okay, let's move to informational items, update on the,
Just one other thing.
yeah,
Who will do the ask at the end? Because after the film, then that would be the ask, correct? And so we have to have a specific person to ask for the money.
I'm more than happy to do it, or it's better.
if you want
for-
elected official, I can do it. I feel comfortable doing it.
Okay.
We need to have somebody ready to take credit cards to
I
imprint.
can do that.
I don't think you do imprints anymore.
You know,
No, they don't have that.
okay, just put that.
Public
face-
They'll put it in Venmo.
yeah.
Yeah, we take Venmo, we take
Yeah.
all the cash apps.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll do that. Anything else on the 14th meeting? I think we've got that one pretty well covered. How about the DC trip? When are we gonna know from how? Well, we've still got a couple months yet, but we've got the people that are going.
I'll
We'll get
follow
the
up with
logistics
Alan.
going.
Yep. I'll
Okay.
Follow up with how we'll get started on it.
Okay, state status of Oregon legislative meetings. Who's gonna take that?
So I'll start that, and Kevin you can fill in gaps. We've had 5 meetings, so 6 today, but 5 meetings prior to this meeting. With different representatives. We've listed them out here. I've also provided in the update and information. We can provide you some background on them. All very positive meetings. I think we've sold the project very well. They've all received it very well. I think we continue to do that, and one of the big questions is always what funding's coming first. So everybody wants to know if the feds are here or the state's here. So we're working through kind of how to do that. And then also how much the locals are going to be contributing to the project. So, and we're working on a plan for being able to communicate how we're addressing that. I don't think there's been anything negative that I've heard on any of the ones I've sat in on. I think everybody's been very engaging and positive. It's been good because we've had representation from both the Oregon and the Washington side. So
That was very much noted.
attending it,
When
yeah,
you
that-
were in attendance, we heard later, they really liked having you there when we're talking Oregon, to have somebody from Washington. I think that really helped.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great message that the entire community supports it, both states. The tribes support it, the environmentalists support it, everyone supports this. There's not another side to this story.
Do we have the tribes coming on the 14th?
We do have a request to the Yakima, and so Bill Sharp, who runs their habitat program, is talking with Roger Dick Jr., who's on the commercial fishing side. They're going to work amongst themselves who will be coming. The only thing I wanted to add to this too, I thought, speaking of the consultation with the tribes, Representative Sanchez didn't ask any questions about the travel consultation, which we were kind of expecting to get some comments from. And it sounded like she had said she had not been hearing anything from her contacts at those tribal agencies.
Which actually was good news.
It was good.
Right, so these legislators are talking to the tribes and other stakeholders. And so if we're not getting questions from them, that may be a good sign that the work that we're doing, even though it maybe take a while, may not, it's still on the right track. Always go faster. I hear you, Commissioner Fox, always go faster.
Okay. So we've got a bunch more this next week, and
We got 3 this week are scheduled, and then we prep every week for the next grouping. So we did 1 this morning, and there's 2 more this week.
on the,
One on Wednesday, one on Friday.
7th and the.
Is that right?
The 7th. And forget what the other day
I think
was.
I've got one 10 a.m. on Wednesday.
We got 10 a.m. on October the 5th and 10 a.m. on October the 7th,
Right, I'll do Wednesday and Arthur's gonna do
Friday.
Friday.
You're gonna get in touch with me with the details, right? Kevin,
Yes.
The stuff that
for
came from
Friday.
Thorn Run
send me the
about
invite,
the,
yeah.
okay, on the 12th and the 13th. I've got to be in Vancouver with Mike on the Pacific Northwest Waterway Association thing. I need somebody to cover the 12th and the 13th. Can you do that?
You mean the 5th and the 7th?
Next week.
No, it's the next week.
Oh, the following.
It's the,
So-
there's meetings
so
on the 12th and 13th.
So the 12th is 8:30 in the morning. And then is there a 1 o'clock? Is that on the 12th? There's 2 of them?
No.
I have 1 at 1 o'clock on the 12th.
I've got,
One that I see.
no, there's one at
The 11th.
8:30
I'm sorry.
on the
it's
12th.
8:30. Yep,
There's one at 1.
that's correct.
So there's 2 there on the 13th.
I don't have any.
I don't have any on the 13th yet.
Yeah, I don't either.
So it's just, right now, it's just 12.
Just the 12th.
I currently have a meeting and I'm gonna, depending on what happens tomorrow, I may or may not be able to do that.
Well, let me know
Okay.
either way.
So I'm planning on being there on the 12th. On both of those meetings, but potentially I will have a 1-year-old in my lap. So let's cross our fingers, there's naps happening. That's
Well, you could
that's
always
all I
be
got.
In
Rich
your
is-
ultralight
Sorry.
airplane
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
over
yeah.
Nevada.
Jake, could you cover the 12th if we needed to?
I could likely do the 12th, so far I could do the 12th. I might not, I might be out on I'm pretty likely gonna be out the 13th or the 14th, so.
Yeah, that's not a problem. That's the 12th. If you could do that, I think it would come across really well. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next one, CFA second draft review.
So the CFA Commission Formation Agreement for the Bi-State Bridge Authority, the second draft is out for review. So if you could, to the 6 agencies, if you could have your legal staff also take a look at this review. The intent is to wrap it up after this review and hopefully present a final version as the 3rd version in November. So
Is it, do you know if it's going straight to our city attorney?
If you send me the contacts, we can send it to them. I did not have the contacts for the legal. We sent it to the port's legal directly, but I did not have the contacts for your legal
When,
staff.
when did it go out?
I want to say it last week. It went out twice.
Yeah,
It might have looked like it was simply the CFA going to you. But I think there was a subsequent email after the fact saying, please get this to your council.
yes.
Because we didn't make it explicit the first time
Looks
that,
like September 27th.
yeah,
27, okay.
So,
I've gone
so
back.
Kevin, you're taking care of the port.
yes, we got great, we got comments from Anna.
The only comment that I had going through it on page 8 of 22 is where they reference the new entity in place, old entity agreements. It was kind of missing that the new bridge authority will honor anything that was agreed to previously.
Yeah.
That's missing in there. It's not there.
Okay,
So we got an email back from the city of White Salmon, their attorney and their interim city manager about changing the number. They are concerned about representation by the cities. And so they would suggest 4 county appointed and 2 city appointed from each side. So big group in my mind.
That's 12.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a big board.
Unless it's 4 county total and 2 cities.
Yeah, no, we were thinking the number stays the same, but exactly, it becomes 4 and 2. So you'd have 1 Washington City, 1 Oregon. So the Oregon City would be Hood River, and then 2 from the county Washington side, 2 from the county Oregon side.
6.
But well,
Yeah,
so White Salmon and Bingen amongst the 2 of you would determine one person to offer up.
yeah,
okay. And then on our side, it would be 2 from the county and 1 from the city.
City.
Yeah, that's great. But I don't know.
But they're all
Yeah, that
appointed
came-
by the counties.
Well, no, that's not what I think she was saying,
It would be,
because otherwise, then that's what we had in the first place.
right. Yeah, we're saying the appointments, you would give an appointment to a city from each state.
Oh, instead of just the counties.
Correct.
would it make more sense to make it easier that the cities? So that it goes through, like, it's still the county that's appointing the person, but the cities will put forward one city name.
Yeah, it's the nomination by the city,
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it seems like that would work the same thing, but maybe keeps it all more streamlined. So
Yeah, I
one
like that
seat that the county appoints, the potential candidates would all be coming up from the cities.
Yeah.
Right.
Representing the
Yeah.
cities.
Yeah.
So basically, the city nominates a person. The county doesn't vote on it.
We just sign off on
We
it.
just sign off on it.
Yeah,
Kind of
this,
the same thing.
this is Steve Siegel. Would you mind if I just heard about this a little while ago. Would you mind if I kind of think about it a little bit and come back with some options? Because there's a number of issues. I don't know if you want to get into them right here. And I'm not suggesting at this moment that there's anything wrong with the proposal. It's just that I don't know, and it's something we should think about a little bit before we put into the agreement.
You guys okay with that? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
I can imagine how there could be some issues. So
Let's put it on our action logs that
Yep.
you'll consider it, Steve, and then report back next meeting.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
And because I can't find that thing from the 27th on my emails, could you forward that to me again on the second draft?
Yeah.
Mike, thank you.
Yeah, and forward it to me also, because I'm not sure. I'm assuming that Bob has dealt with this, but I don't know. He's been picking a lot of fruit, so he may not have done this.
okay, moving on. Grant status.
Yes, so we'll start with the good news, we think, or at least positive news, I'll call it. We got an additional question from the what's the
Mega.
initials again?
Mega.
Sorry. MPDG, which oversees the 3 grants, which one was the infra grant, one is the mega grant, one is the rural grant. The infra grant we've heard about. The mega grant, they asked us additional questions, wanting some more information about the local commitments and how the funding would be secured for future maintenance. And we provided them a short response back to that, tolling would cover any increases in the cost down the road and also cover maintenance and operations in the future. And that we were still, coordinating around with the legislative folks, and it was still a positive conversation. So we didn't have anything specific to commitment yet from anyone, but we did, beef up the language that we had related to tolling and the commitment that tolling would be able to provide. So we provided that back to them today. That came in on Friday morning, and they needed it by 9 o'clock this morning. So at least they're looking at it. I mean, if they're asking questions, that means it's still being considered. So that was a positive thing to hear. So the BIP grant, we have not heard anything back, so that's still in the review
What was
process.
that? Which one?
The BIP grant,
Yeah, okay.
and then the safe streets for all is still in consideration. We just submitted that one. So, and then we're working on identifying the ones for next year, and
So the $100 million grant, the second
that's the
one,
BIP. Yes.
do we need to send them proactively what we sent the mega?
We should probably reach out to them and see. We were kind of waiting to see if they asked any questions and then was going to send it, but we could reach out to them and see if there's an ability to do an update before they ask any types of questions.
And they know that our bridge is now at a 6.
I don't remember if that was out when we did the BIP. We can look at that and see.
I think we need to be watching those, because this thing's going to take a couple months yet. Try and keep them up to speed of what's going on. Okay. Is there any other grants that we could go for? I mean,
There's a cycle on them, so we'll start again next year with the kind of the same ones this year, and then we'll just monitor if anything comes out between now and then.
Okay.
We've looked at some travel ones, but we kind of need to look in those a little more detail. Those we may or may not, and maybe as part of the MOAs that we do with the tribes, we look at maybe some opportunities to partner for grants for impacts for that. But we've got, then next year we'll start the cycle and resubmit a lot of the same ones that we submitted this year.
okay. And where are we in getting ready to do our TIFIA loan application?
Yep, so on the 17th, we'll do a presentation on TIFIA, just kind
Okay.
of going through the process and how to get started and what TIFIA is and how they leverage it and the options on repayment and those types of things. So we'll do kind of a TIFIA 101
Okay.
presentation on the 17th.
Okay, section 10, treaty MOA.
So treaty MOAs, this is for the fishing mitigation impacts. So this is somewhat separate from the NEPA discussions and the section 106 MOA. This is specific to the rights that the tribes have through their treaties, and then how we would compensate them for impacts to their fishing rights that they have. So we have a draft, but there's some comments on that to look at some alternative ways to approach that mitigation. And we need to kind of walk through that and talk through kind of what those options are. I don't know if we want to do it here or we want to put some things together and bring it back maybe on the 17th and talk about it. But H&TB is going to take the lead on that. Akana, Herb Frick, who is a traveling company, is going to take the lead. He's looking at developing some items related to that and the MOA. And then we need to get that over to the Yakima Nation. The current form that we have, we used what was done between Washington and the Muckleshoot on the 520 project is kind of our basis. We've left it pretty broad in order for them to kind of come back and give us some numbers, because we didn't want to be kind of the first to put numbers out there. We're like, okay, we need to determine some impacts and where are they and what are they looking at. So we kind of like to hear back from them first, and then we can start doing that. But I think the critical thing is to get something on paper and start getting something that people can actively edit, mark up, talk about, move forward, rather than just talking about process. So,
But one of the things I think we got to be thinking about when we do that is what are we trying to do with this thing? And it's not just to provide money to the tribes for, destroying their nets or impeding their ability to catch fish. I personally think it's a couple of other things too. One is safety. We're gonna have a lot of barges floating around right next to this new bridge. There's gonna be cranes lifting stuff around it. You wanna try and keep the public out of a certain envelope of water as much as you can. One of the thoughts that I had, which is a little different, if you think about the river, you got the current bridge. Yeah, you can kind of see it here. You got the current bridge going this way. This new bridge is going to come right into here, and then it's going to kind of curve out. I was thinking, let's put a buffer zone and pick a number, but 500 yards upriver, 500 yards downriver from the new bridge center line. And you pay the tribes to not fish within that envelope for the period of construction. Because if we do what the original approach is, if they're in here fishing and we hit a net, we pay them for the net and we pay them a little loss of productivity while they can't fish to get the new net in. Okay, well, we really don't want nets floating out here where we got barges coming in and turning and unloading equipment and all this kind of stuff. So why not no man's land between there? They can still access the channel to get downriver or upriver, but keep them out of this construction zone
On both sides of the river you're talking
on
about.
both sides of the river.
So is the MOA about construction impact or?
Well,
lifetime
here's the
impacts
other
or
thing.
both?
If you got a net out here and you've got a barge that comes in and now you've got a claim, you've got a claim from the tribes, you're also going to have a claim from the construction guys. And every time you have to.
No, I understand the point you're making. I don't know this MOA. What is the scope of it?
It's, I guess, broad terms, it's compensation for impacts for them to be able to perform what they're allowed to do through the treaty.
But
So-
for the construction
Just
period
during
or?
It's,
Beyond,
but,
okay.
yeah,
So it's beyond the construction period, okay.
Two things.
yeah.
No, that's great. No, that helps a lot. And in terms of what buffer is necessary, isn't that something the engineering process is going to tell us? We don't know the answer yet.
No,
You
but
just made up a
I
number,
just made
right?
up 500 yards, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it's 1,000 yards.
But you're talking
maybe
about
it's-
something equivalent to purchasing an
Yeah.
easement saying,
Yeah.
this is a no fish zone, and we're gonna pay you not to fish. I get that. Hasn't there also been discussion about designing into the bridge fishing elements like fishing platforms and stuff
Yeah,
like that?
and that's part of what we
Would that be
don't,
part of this?
and that's part of what the agreement is, and,
Right.
the way we approached it with originally, the way it was developed was based on the 520, which is, we've kind of learned more about that.
Right.
That project didn't have necessarily fishing around the location of the
Right.
bridge, but it was access to and from.
Right.
So it was like something coming down the river and impacting them. Here it's more impacts at a specific location.
Right.
So there is I think some reason to have that discussion with them about, hey, we really need to clear this area. There is a concern, and we'll have to work through it about, is that going to be perceived that they're giving up some of their rights, even if it is temporary? We don't know until we have that conversation.
good.
So I think
Yep.
we put those things on the table and we see what their response is. Till we do that, we really can't move this forward. So I think
And-
it's important to get that in front of
Sure.
them.
And has the concept of putting fishing elements into the bridge been raised directly with the tribes yet? Okay,
Yes.
okay, so they're thinking about what would make sense.
Yeah, and even so far as say, the project offered up installing some type of a ridge on the base of the pier that they could actually put their boats onto, and they actually requested not for that to happen because they didn't want to draw non-tribal fishers to the spot.
Okay,
But they did like the idea of having eye bolts around the perimeter or something like that. They talked about angles, the angles of the bolts, and so there's definitely some
there's some
interest there.
thoughts. Great.
So I guess the thing that makes sense is to go and look at like 500 yards around the bridge would be 270 acres exclusion total. 500 yards both sides. and see how many nets are actually in that area now. Because that might be the easier thing, if you just pay them one lump sum per season. And hopefully those families can find another place. If not, well, we providing all that cost and value.
Yeah, that's what I
Versus
heard Mike
talking,
say.
moving them or anything else.
Yeah, it seems like that would simplify the conversation if we did that.
Yep.
And that's what we want to kind of look into. One of the
I wonder,
things to get
Kevin,
is those quantities are hard to come up with. Is
we
there
just
data on them as far?
rebuilt the port did, rebuilt the sheriff's boathouse.
Okay,
I wonder if we could ask him to take us out on the river and do a survey. You know, how many nets do we see upriver, downriver by roughly how many yards to do that kind of an inventory?
It changes so
Every
often,
day
you know,
it's
I don't
yeah.
know if it's.
Well, how would we capture
You'd ask
something that
them.
would
They,
be?
they
Yeah.
have permits, from what I understand. The travel have permits that they should be able to give us some level of quantity. It's gets difficult because they're to each person that I've learned, so. You have to have the number of people, so if we do a compensation, is it to the tribe and then somehow it gets down to the person, or is the compensation per person? So there's a lot of little details in it, but I think generally we just gotta get something in front of them and start having those conversations.
we just want to make sure that what we send them has been vetted by Herb's
Yeah.
team to make sure that there isn't anything. You know, that's.
You don't want to be making assumptions. And his company is called Akana.
I kind of.
He advised the project.
No, I
I would say
remember his
4 or 5
presentation.
years
Yeah,
ago.
no, it makes a ton of sense. I just, yeah, we shouldn't be assuming that we know what do we know about fishing?
Know how to eat them. Know how to eat them.
Yeah, I don't think that goes.
So we'll
I
continue
have a
to
question.
update you on that. I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
just had a question. When you're talking to the tribes as well, have they shown any indication of wanting, you know, I know how we talked about there was a screening aspect of the bridge on the Washington side to protect their fishing area. Has there been a conversation with them about what other kind of amenities could we possibly provide on the Washington side to enhance their fishing area? If we're talking about helping their
We
things
had,
out.
absolutely, Commissioner. So we had a meeting with the Umatilla, I want to say maybe a month and a half ago, and to one of their committees. And there was repeated requests that different type, I guess it'd be kind of like a hut, but something that would provide shade. Because they like to use the bridge currently because of the shade that it provides. So if they're being moved out of that area, wherever they end up, can there be some kind of shade, sun protection? So the conversations that the project has had have gotten pretty granular into those types of things. And we're actually talking to committee members of those tribal agencies and getting that feedback.
But who's creating the list of wants?
That's
That's
what we're
kind of-
getting, that's what we're working on putting together.
So
Okay.
WSP started that because it was section 106, because part of the issue about the tying the nets to the historic structure is that those piers are going to be in different locations.
Right.
And so there's aspects of this in section 106. There's the habitat impacts, which the biological opinion will pick up on. And so Brian Carrico at WSP produced a matrix with, I want to say, 100 different possible impacts, and then put it into each federal process where it would be mitigated, minimized, or avoided.
So this whole thing is really centered on ability for fishing.
For the treaty MOA.
I understand that. Where I was going with this, do we want to keep that pure? Or if we're going to negotiate, do we want to try and negotiate at the same time access on the Washington side?
Are you talking about to the treaty fishing access site?
No, remember during the estimate review, we figured we were going to have construction access down to the river edge to help build the piers and so on the Washington shore. And we were gonna have to get some kind of an agreement with the tribes to give us access and build a road down there. Do we want to muddy this thing up with that at the same time? One negotiation comprehensive and we're done?
So you're thinking of going through down South Dock Grade and going through the tribes in Lucite and then going under.
That was one thought because of the slope of trying to get down there.
Well, you couldn't do it any other because you got the railroad.
Yeah.
So that's the only way you can get into that area.
So the other federal process was the overhead easement of the bridge over the underwater portion of the BIA parcel that extends out into the river. So the Bureau of Indian Affairs has a whole right-of-way acquisition for easements and those types of things. So there will need to be an application for an overhead easement. And if the piers can't be moved one way or the other out of that parallelogram, if it has to be inside, then we'd have to apply for an easement for the pier footings. But I think we can, I don't,
What's the length of process on getting there?
it's a fairly, I'm not gonna say, I don't know. I'm gonna say, I don't know. But we're not far enough along.
The treaty MOA alone, we've been told could be 6 to 18 months.
But that's a little bit, he's asking about the right of way
The right of way process.
permit.
I'd hate to start designing a bridge and then say all of a sudden you have to change where your pier footings are.
Yeah, we'd want to get that locked down before we ever started the bridge design.
Is that likely to come out of your early engineering work?
Yeah, I mean, those
Release
would
the
be some of the,
envelopes.
yeah, those would be some of the things we want to lock down that we would not want to allow change. Because you don't want to have to go back to the length of process it takes
Right.
to get that, so.
Anyway, I think we need to think about that strategy.
Yep.
And is it better to go with one and then sweeten the pot a little bit to get them to agree? Instead of trying to do 2 or 3 of these?
And one of the things that Con's putting together is a travel coordination plan, and that's all part of that is, getting a good understanding of all the impacts of all the tribes, because Yakima is just one of the 4 that, and then each one of them have individual rights in there that are all different. So we need to understand all of that as well. So there's a lot to understand as far as the impacts, and
So we're gonna hear about this at the next meeting? Or when are we hearing about this?
you will hear some about it at the 17th. Yes.
Okay, section 106 MOA.
There's really a couple pieces to that this week. They should be going out for legal review.
Big
Which
milestone.
is a big piece to that, and that will, hopefully, the 106 will get to a signature point by the end of the year. Along with the BO, so the biological opinion and the 106 were the 2 big components of the NEPA and FEIS process that should be done by the end of the year. With those 2 things done at the end of the year, and then if the Bi-State Bridge Commission is up and running in January, I think it'd be a good opportunity for us to go back to the feds and ask them again about separating the mitigation agreements and the treaty MOAs from the NEPA documents, and see if they would reconsider that decision to not separate those.
But in my opinion, we shouldn't slow anything down with the MOU with the
Absolutely
tribes
not.
to show them.
There's even
But-
more of a reason actually to get those done, because that's what gives you to me, a little bit of leverage to say, hey, these are really ready. They're at signature point.
Right.
We're just waiting on signatures. Can we not just separate these and continue with mitigation, which
But it
really
also shows
doesn't
them
directly
that we've pushed out on the tribe MOA.
Yeah.
By giving them, hey, here's a template. Here's an idea, maybe give them 2 ideas. And have a sit down with them. What would you like to do?
And one of their reason with the Bi-State Bridge Commission being important is one of their early concerns was the commitment and who was going to hold that commitment. And that ultimately will end up being the Bridge Commission. If that's legs under it by January and we've got the formation agreement signed by everyone, I think it gives us another piece of the puzzle to say, hey, these things are all done now. You're actually got somebody that you can negotiate with. There's no reason to hold up this
Yeah, but I still think we need to get in the commission agreement that
We will.
we will honor past.
Yep, and we're still gonna put that in those 3 documents.
I can't imagine a lawyer that would let us get away without putting that in there. I've
Yeah.
never signed a legal agreement that didn't have that.
Yeah, well, it's not in there yet.
Okay, I bet it's hidden. I bet it's there. We haven't found it.
Actually, I read the whole darn thing.
I believe you did.
Okay. Okay, bye.
So the biological opinion we talked about, we're gonna have a mid-October update. We'll add the action items for a year-end check-in also. And hopefully that'll get done. It's really all in Oregon's hands, the ODOT to do that. So we'll do what we can to push them and ask a lot of questions. But
Just if I could just add on that, keep in mind too, that ODOT and the project are in agreement. It's ODOT's writing it on our behalf, giving it to National Marine Fisheries. That's where the issue has been. So ODOT is as frustrated as we are that they haven't been accepting their work.
And they spent all this time thinking they were under what they thought was the right approach to have somebody new come in outside of their agency and say, well, we want to do it a little different. So it was,
Okay, so-
equally frustrating.
So this marine fisheries. Should we set up some kind of a briefing like we're doing for the legislators? Just to give them a, hey, here's where we are on our bridge. It's really important to us. And we need your help.
I don't think it matters.
If you recall, Commissioner, that is one of the reasons why I was hoping that you would be going to the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association. Because the National Marine Fisheries Regional Director will be speaking at that conference in Vancouver. And so and I've put the PNWA staff on notice that that this is an issue. And so if there's an opportunity where you can
We need to make the opportunity.
yeah, absolutely.
So we need a one pager that we can leave with him. Of the criticality of his work.
Yeah, this is what everyone says, right? This is what they told us, that don't think you're gonna impress them. Every single project that comes in is super important and is critical to the community. So that's their baseline. They're not gonna be impressed.
So.
Well,
we
at
had
least
this
I can
discussion.
sleep at night that we tried.
Yeah, I think you'd hurt the, it's insulting almost.
So what we heard when we had that meeting is there's only 2 people in the state that deal with this, right?
Right.
And National Marine Fisheries has an even larger reach in the state. They only have about 2 people that deal with this stuff too. And all they're ever doing is putting out fires. Every time you call them, they're not working on something. What they've said that they do with the state is they will bump this process higher up their list to get it done quicker, to put it in the news format, the long range format, and then get it back to the National Marine Fisheries. Inviting somebody down or taking a day out of their time, I'd rather than trying to get through their.
No, I was thinking trying to get above them.
Oh, there's nobody above them. That's the
Dear
problem.
Lord.
That's the problem.
Usually talking to their boss usually only just pisses them
Yeah.
off.
So
It's not a political, it's
No, this
it's
is a
not
political decision.
political.
they
This
did,
is people flexing their muscles and trying to show their autonomy, but it's not gonna help to do it that way.
Okay,
and they did tell us that they would designate a person and we did get that name. So,
Yeah.
So they did take some action of what they
National
said they were
Marine
gonna do.
Fisheries
They were gonna designate a person to help with Cash and Tom.
Yeah, Tom Loines and
So
somebody
they
from
did
Federal
that.
Highways was going to monitor it and have somebody ushering the biological opinion through to the branch chief and make sure that everybody at that branch chief level is hopefully on the same page.
So far they, that was one of the early things they were supposed to do and they did it. So.
okay, let's go to the next one, the traffic and tolling study.
Yep, so this is the Washington State Transportation Commission. This is the 1.5 million to advance the TNR study. We met with CDM Smith. They were very, very collaborative with us, which is good for the port because they really took in our information and we'll be doing a number of things that will help to inform us as far as what the community thinks about tolling and what their value, they call it value, time value of money or value of time. and what people consider and will pay for tolling. So they are going to come in December and do a presentation on what they've kind of found. They're also going to be here tomorrow to do a short presentation. Tomorrow, I lost track of my weeks. Yeah, it's tomorrow. To do a short presentation on what the study is about and kind of what they're doing. So it's just a brief presentation on that. But it was very good. We weren't really sure how they would approach it, whether they would be super collaborative and, or not, and they have been. So it's been really great. We've been providing them with a lot of information. Jen has been a big help in getting old documents and old information out and, feeding their study and all the information that they need. So this will move it from sketch level up to level 2, level 3. So the good thing about them collaborating with us is when we have to take this to the next level, we will be able to leverage all of that work and information to do a investment grade when we get to that point. So, and it'll inform, we're going to do we're calling it toll revenue optimization study to evaluate tolls and evaluate the increase of a toll in July of next year. So it'll also help to inform that as we go out and do the communications and inform people of what that looks like and what we've done with the finances and all the prep work that needs to do to implement a toll increase in July.
So when do we start talking about, the traffic study will say, hey, here's a revenue stream from that, and you could use it for going for TIFIA loans and whatnot. But it seems to me, we're going to have to know what our operating costs are going to be on the new bridge. Plus, whatever loans we make, we got to pay it back, and it's got to fit within that toll envelope. So when are we going to start looking at
Financial model.
operational costs of the new bridge?
It's a financial model.
Yeah, and that's part of what Kerry's group's gonna do with the whole, the revenue optimization will do that, but also his financial plan that'll come out next year will have all of that stuff in there. It'll package up all of the costs coming out, the revenue coming in, what's the TNR say, what's TIFIA options, all of it, and different toll scenarios, right? What if we made it $50 a trip? What if we made it $2 a trip? What does that do to the number of people going across? All of those things it'll give us a picture of the whole tolling operation.
Okay. All right, Roger, critical inspection report, HDR.
Can I just interject real quick? I'm sorry. This is Carl C. with the Washington State Transportation Commission. I didn't receive an invite for tomorrow, so I had joined today anticipating that I would provide a brief introduction today. I'm happy to do it another time. I recognize you're 15 minutes past your 4 o'clock in time, but if there is a meeting tomorrow, I don't have an invite for it. So if I need to talk to Mike or to Kevin, please let me know and I can see what I can do. I won't be available in the morning. So if it's in the morning, it won't be me making that presentation. But happy to answer questions now or talk more, certainly at a later date, one-on-one or as a group.
So would you like to go through stuff with Carl now, since he's on the phone, or we can schedule it for?
You
tomorrow,
guys
we can bring it
stand
back?
by for a little longer?
Yeah, and he's here. That's.
Yeah, let's
Then go ahead, Carl.
Okay, appreciate that. I have some slides. I don't know if there's anything to be, if you can see that or not, or.
We're gonna make you presenter.
Okay, I can, I'll go ahead and do that. So I'll pull it up and then I'll
Yeah,
put it,
sure.
I have more slides and I'll actually touch on, because I want to keep that brief at the same time, and I'll put this in, should be presentation mode. Do you see the slides here?
Yes.
I'll just,
You might want to swap your settings, Carl.
that's what I was going to ask. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll swap here. Thank you. Keeping it brief, Carl C. I'm the Deputy Director for the Transportation Commission. I do have online our consultant project manager, Tim Bosch, with CDM Smith as well. So he will be leading up the actual work of the study itself in terms of putting together the traffic and revenues work. we feel fortunate to have CDM Smith on board and look forward to having this project underway. I don't need to necessarily go through the overview, but just wanted to make sure we have the scope. You're aware of the 1.5 million that was provided for this study by the Washington State Legislature this past spring in the transportation budget with the intent to carry out the plan level traffic and revenue study.
Yep.
The primary goal then is to develop the plan level traffic and revenue analysis and resulting toll funding capacity across multiple different scenarios for toll rates, for example, to support future funding decisions for the proposed bridge replacement. We also will, this study should also inform the potential investment grade traffic and revenue study that would presumably follow as you get closer to being ready to toll and ultimately finance the bridge. Study area you were all aware of, so I don't necessarily need to touch on that, but just letting you know we're aware of the different options for crossing the bridge nearby, and we'll be taking that under consideration. As well as the many intersections that are impacted by the traffic flows. So again, not news to you.
Yeah.
Overall, then we are currently engaging at this beginning tasks for this traffic and revenue study by collecting transaction history and detailed traffic and travel patterns. Our thanks to Kevin Greenwood and to the HNTB team, both Carrie and Mike, for their assistance to date on helping pull this information together, and as we continue to do so. And then Tim and his team will lead up the traffic assignment model that is specific to this project to help identify help model the future use of a new bridge. And in addition, there is additional value being added in addition to that model, including the independent economic forecast, which will support that future investment grade study, as well as the stated preference survey that was referenced, and interviews with freight, both shippers and carriers, as well as the operations analysis and financial capacity analysis, and up to 8 tolling scenarios that we'll whittle down to 2 before moving for final analysis. In regards to those studies scenarios, we have a little flow chart here just to help visualize it. The scenario development will be underway as we begin to analyze the analysis of the data that's coming in and conduct some analysis. Then allow for 8 preliminary scenarios that we will. The Washington State Transportation Commission since we've been charged to oversee the study, we're certainly leading up this process, but we understand that there's value for both, of course, for Porterfield River and for our study to tightly coordinate with any information we're putting forward, and we'll be seeking that input as we develop those scenarios. And that could be different tolling rates, but also different structures for how that tolling is to take place. We'll do some initial analysis, forecasting of traffic and revenues from those scenarios before selecting 2 to move forward, which will, the State Transportation Commission will select those scenarios, but again, we'll work closely to ensure we're having that input from both Porterfield River and really all the bi-state working group, or at that point, perhaps the bi-state bridge authority, to ensure that there's an understanding about what would be the preferred scenarios to move forward for further analysis. Then the final test, final analysis, both forecasts and additional sensitivity tests to ensure that that information is then captured in the final report.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you talk about the 2 final scenarios, how do you determine what to pick? What are the, what's plus or minus in trying to pick scenarios?
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
High level. You don't have to go into too much detail.
No problem. We've, as a state tolling authority, we've gone through this on Washington State bridge facilities numerous times, both at a staff level and inclusive of the commission level. And certainly the baseline, if the baseline for any decisions will be, does this meet the financial requirements that be necessary, as well as any performance targets that might be in place in terms of traffic congestion or just traffic flow on the bridge. But then there are policy considerations, of course, as well. Is there interest in a certain maximum amount or certain range for toll rates to take place, to keep toll rates within a certain range or below a certain amount? Are there any exemptions to keep in mind, whether for tribes or that may need to be in place per treaties, or for low income, like we have in some other parts of the state, or considering, I should say, for some other parts of the state, or for different vehicle classes. So there's certainly a range of both policy and analysis that we need to consider as we select those two.
So
Thanks.
when you say scenario, it's my first reaction was, oh, so they're gonna look at a $5 toll or a $3.50 toll or something like that. But you're saying more the things you'd be looking at are who gets tolled or what the different classes. The scenarios are playing around in that area, and then sensitivity is going to tell us the difference between a base rate of X dollars versus Y dollars. Is that correct?
I think that might, and this may be a point where I asked Tim to weigh in a little further, but typically we would look at a set of options together. It might be that it might depend on the conversation of how we whittle down from 8 to 2, and whether there are some specific requirements that are in place or strong recommendations in place in regards to the toll rate structure, like how it's spread out during the day. Or
could you give us an example, just at a high level, what one scenario would look like? I think that would help us.
Sure.
Say
And
scenario.
an example we could look at is if there's a determination that you're going to have variable rate tolls on the bridge. Okay, so different toll rates, different time of day. Let's just say that was an example. If that was the case, we would say, well, both scenarios have that, but perhaps the peak hours are a little different on each.
Got it.
And perhaps the variance between the midday and the peak hour rates are different too. So you're looking at different toll rates and then a different time of day for the rates.
Are you also looking at mixture of use, light cars versus trucks?
That would have to be determined through the process of looking at the 8 scenarios and then whittling it down to 2, but there would be potential to look at options of how to toll different vehicle classes.
Okay, so this is a situation where you've got a ton of data to start with. You have, 100 years worth of tolling data, I think. And tolls have changed a fair amount. So does that mean that the end result is going to be higher quality? In other words, is this going to be something we can take to the bank, or I guess that's maybe that's what investment grade means, but yeah.
I would say that is what investment grade means. And while this will be certainly of a high quality, it's being scoped as a plan level study. And really that's largely meant to inform both policy decisions, but also potential funding, the direction of funding choices to be made as well. But you want to do an investment grade study when you're ready to go out for that financing, because then the information is definitely fully current for the banks to be confident in what you're put forward, and you have those final or very near final decisions being made around different policy options or toll rates or other requirements.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, if you would like, Kerry Wood's on, and he could give you this 3-minute overview of that revenue optimization process that'll kind of blend with this. If you want him to take a minute or two.
Go ahead. Why don't you ask?
Kerry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, folks. Hi, good afternoon, and thank you, commissioners. We're going to be working with the Port Commission, the Bi-State Working Group, and eventually with the Bi-State Bridge Commission on a very parallel and closely coordinated process here to look at optimizing toll revenue for 2 purposes. One of which is looking at potential toll increases that take place, fairly soon, as early as next year, to build up some reserves in advance of the new bridge being financed, and then finally to provide the financing capacity that we're going to need, 4 years from now when it comes time to finance this new bridge. And so you're going to hear this word scenario a lot, and that is where, to the point that was made earlier, we're going to look at different toll rate scenarios, different differentials between cash toll and electronic toll, all kinds of different things, with the goal of meeting the financial needs of the project. That's going to be our primary focus. Then what will happen is those scenarios will inform the scenarios that the Transportation Commission and CDM Smith put through their model and look at all kinds of details. So we'll be in the very near future, we'll be working with this group to set some of the criteria. What are those financial goals? Do we want to make sure that we have financing capacity to provide, $85 million, $100 million, $125 million towards this project? And then we'll develop these scenarios and say which of these scenarios will get us there. And then, ultimately, and I'm thinking that this is late spring of next year, we'll be asking the port or the bi-state working group to make a decision on potentially implementing toll increases. But there's this process of that you all will go through to set the policy. What are the goals that we need to meet? And certainly honoring past commitments is one of those, et cetera. So I just wanted to let you know that there's kind of two parallel processes here, but they are going to be very closely coordinated, and we've already started that process, and I'm very pleased so far with how we're doing.
Good.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay.
Good, Carl.
Can I just ask if Tim, if I misrepresent anything on our plan here in terms of the scenarios, to just speak up.
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
The scenarios are really what you're looking at for what Carrie was talking about. The sensitivity tests are around some of the inputs to the modeling that gives you a range of what the way things may turn out. So those are things like if the economics don't come out quite the way that they're supposed to, or there's a difference in the value of time. That's what those are really geared for.
Thanks, Tim.
Carl, when do you expect to have this done?
We have a due date of June 30th of next year.
Well, it sounds
So
like June 29th, because we're now one day ahead in terms of your presenting this to us.
We'll try. Yes.
That was Arthur Babbitt.
Commissioner, please.
We know that, and as Carrie mentioned, it's been great to begin working with your team, both Port of Hood River and with HNTB, to get an understanding of what your process is here in the near term. And while we have a due date of June 30th, much of the analysis has to be done well ahead of that, right? We need to be bringing together the report and finalizing that in those last couple of months. So we'll be working closely to coordinate both the analysis work, the inputs and the analysis, as well as the scenario development, to bring as much continuity between the two processes as we can. There's a certain independence that we've been asked to have for this study, but at the same time, it doesn't mean we are looking to do this in a bubble. In no way do we want that to be the case. We want to ensure we have that coordination. So it's a well-informed study, and one that can really provide value for not just our state legislatures' interest in knowing more about the financing, but also for the Port of Hood River and the bridge and bi-state bridge entity to help move forward.
Well, thank you for saying that, and it's our desire as well to work collaboratively with you. I think together we can make this a working system here, and
Great.
Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Hey, Carl, just one quick question. This is Kevin. Can you talk a little bit about the public processes that this process will go through, I mean, are there opportunities for the community to chime in, or can you just address that?
Mhm. We don't have we had some input, some initial survey work about the use of the bridge that we're starting soon here with the state of preference surveys. And we've been working with you and your team, as you're aware, to start some initial feedback on how the bridge is used. We don't have a plan for at this point of having any, say, public meetings to discuss scenarios, specific, say, public outreach meetings, though we will be discussing them at our commission meetings, which are public meetings, and happy to share information at meetings like this, the bi-state working group, or others that may have an opportunity for public viewing. Is that where kind of?
If I could just jump in and say that my strong recommendation for the parallel process, for the revenue optimization process that the port's going to be engaging in, is going to be that there be a very strong public engagement process. I'm going to recommend to you that, and we'll talk in detail about this at your next meeting, that it is very important to engage your public, and especially that section of the public that are serious stakeholders in this project, in any discussions about what their tolerance is for higher tolls. And it's a chance for us to tell the story about what they get in terms in return for their consent to pay a higher toll. There's dozens of studies out there that show that people don't mind paying tolls as long as they understand the benefit they're getting from it. And so we're going to be very deliberate about telling that story.
You're gonna be saving lots of money on mirrors.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Their side mirrors.
And I would totally agree with Carrie. And I think the key difference there is you're looking at a toll rate increase that you're planning for here in the near term. And certainly having a very public process involved in that is critical. Typically, a plan level study is used to inform a future public process that you would undertake during a investment grade study, for example, or as you complete that and move into those final stages. So that's kind of the distinction we see right now, but we're certainly working to gather input inclusive of from the public, both general users, but also freight users in particular, to support our understanding of the use of the bridge.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, let's move on. Do we have, is HDR going to provide an update tonight?
I don't think Comet's still on.
This is on the fracture critical report.
No, he's not. So we'll have to have him reschedule him.
Okay.
Okay, so
We'll
could
reschedule
we
him
get
come
him
back in.
on the next meeting then,
Yeah.
for sure?
Yep.
Anxious to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Upcoming actions. Mike, you want to go through that real quick?
Yeah, just real quick, we've got the First Amendment, their service contract, I think, is in the process.
Yep, we'll be reviewing that on Friday, Commissioner Fox.
And then the ODOT Tech Service Intergovernment Agency Agreement. We've been working with ODOT on that, and plan to bring those in mid-October meeting on the 17th. And then there's a second amendment, which will cover some of what Carrie was just talking about, as well as the communications piece, and then also this travel MOA that will come in November. And then we will do a presentation on the delivery method and ask for your action on the type of delivery method in early December. And then January is the CFA approval, will be some of the major upcoming actions.
And the other thing that I don't see on here is the original work plan said that you would have your PMP, all the upfront procedures
Yes.
ready for review. When do you expect those?
So those are starting to come in. I asked Kevin about those actually this morning. How do you want to submit those? Who wants to review them? How do you want to review them? What's the process?
I want to
for that?
read them. I would imagine.
We want you to read them.
Yeah. So I
Well,
think
and that
you
was
ought to
kind
issue
of the
them.
question.
Since
I knew the
he
answer
knows
for you.
and we don't.
Yeah, well, I knew the answer for Commissioner Fox. I didn't know the answer for everyone.
Well, there you- that's for me.
So
Yeah.
we will, I was gonna turn them into you and
Okay.
Kevin, and then allow you
That's
to
fine.
distribute them as for whoever needed to or wanted to look
Okay.
at them. So, okay.
Any actions that we need to talk about from the meeting that we haven't already captured?
No, I don't think so. We'll summarize them up and
Okay.
do the same thing in the agenda going forward. So.
Okay. Final thoughts from the attendees, commissioners. Jake?
I'd say my thoughts are having two separate processes being done by two different entities at the same time is usually a recipe for disaster with the public. When you're looking at revenue tolling on this side and, you know, say the numbers are showing one thing over here, and then we're looking to do our own set of revenue tolling on this side with a very public process. And say we implement something, yeah, what's going to come out in this one might look significantly different. That's a great way for the public to just railroad you left and right, saying, this is what you're telling me, but this is what you're planning to do to me. That might not go so well. Just be very wary of that, and how we manage that, you know.
I thought maybe I heard a different timing there. I thought that this study was informing the next process, and that the process was going to play off of that, that it wasn't going to be a parallel. I hate to use the word parallel.
Well,
but,
it's their
so maybe the
staggered, but-
timing.
One will not have a public really outreach other than just asking for data. So the
Right.
TNR study is just going to send questions about, you know, people's thoughts on get the data, and then they won't go back out to the public for that. Then the other study will be the one that kind of takes that information and takes it out to the public, so that it won't be two parallel pieces going out to the public. It'll be one informing another one that goes out to the public.
At some point, the
Only
data
one
from this
real
is going to,
communication.
Right, but one, the internal one is not out to the public, it's gonna come up with two options. While at the same time, we're gonna be moving forward with an option that may be completely different than those.
I think that's, is that really the
Thought
timing? I
that
thought it
there's-
was.
Well, and Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, the thought is the two scenarios that come out of the TNR will feed into the options that we end up implementing.
I think that the discussions we've had to date with the team from Washington State is it's extraordinarily important that we not diverge in that way. The processes are parallel and separate because one of them is the Port Commission making decisions about its and setting policy with regard to its own agency. The other is the Washington State Transportation Committee actually paying for a very detailed analysis of that can eventually go to the bank, to quote an earlier comment. You know, ultimately, when we go for TIF financing or whatever, we're going to have to take with us an investment grade traffic and revenue study. And this is the first 2/3 probably of such a study that we're getting Washington State to actually do on our behalf. But it is critically important, and I consider it to be one of my main jobs to make sure that the scenario that you come up with that meets your policy and financing goals for this project is the same scenario that goes into the detailed analysis with Washington State. Otherwise, I agree with you, Commissioner. We're first of all spinning our wheels, and we're also risking discord by coming up with two separate answers, and we do not want that to happen. And so far, it appears that that's not going to be a problem.
That's great. And I'd say the other concern that I have is the public perception. If we're gonna go for a revenue increase while the bridge is degrading, while a significant portion of the current revenue is being diverted, that's gonna not go over very well in the Washington side.
One of the things that I was going to mention, but that plays right into that. I think as we're doing all of this, we've got to create a story, not just the bi-state and the new bridge, but the old bridge, to get a storyline ready to go to explain that.
And that's part of what Kerry was saying earlier when he was talking about a storyline. That's exactly what he's talking about, is we need to understand, you got to understand your history and what's been done, and then how you explain that going forward. And what he was saying about people have to see a value of whatever that increase is going to be. And if they don't, you'll never get a toll increase through. So there's some work to be done there, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
just explaining the history is going to be some work. So.
There's some politics, there's
Yeah.
some history that people
So
people know what they know.
to me,
Even if it's not true, sometimes
They
they
still
know
know.
But in
it.
this case, it is true.
That is very true.
Yeah,
That is true.
In this case, it probably is
it
true.
might be, yeah, but I mean, both ways it can happen.
We've had a lot of discussions about that, of being able to explain, the financing history as well as,
Yep.
going forward, so.
Yep, no, that's all we have to
And,
happen.
I think that, we just, that story of if the tolls increase next year, we have a degrading bridge. And if every single cent of that additional toll is like, this is to pay for the new bridge, we've got to come up with local money and we have to have more in the next 5 years. Like, okay, it's a degrading bridge, but do you want a new bridge or you just want this one to fall in the water?
Well, do you believe the story though? That's, I think, what Jake is talking about. They've heard that story before.
So every cent of it's gonna go to the new bridge.
Yeah.
And that's the history that we've got to be able to explain.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
promised this time.
There's a big question about that.
Double dare.
Yeah.
There's also the key that I was hoping to hear about is, after seeing those pictures of the bridge and how much work needs to be done, and you guys got a good answer on how much cash needs to be dumped into this thing to keep it.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we've talked about
We've asked
upgrading that
for
study, and-
consideration to update the study. The study's a couple years old now, 6 years old, I think.
26 to 53 million.
Yeah. But that was
It's made up
before
since then.
inflation too, so.
Well, I meant just what we just came out.
Oh,
with,
no,
the most
I'm saying the same
recent.
thing. HNTB is supposed to be giving us a recommendation of how do you work off the stuff that they found this time? And then we've got to get an estimate of what is it gonna cost. And we go from there. But we also want, I want an update of the aging estimate that said over the next X number of years, you need to spend this. That's 6 years old. Things have changed drastically. We need to update that. And get a current picture.
And the goals there, the operational goals that they had there may be at divergence from what we're doing now. In other words, the goal then was, hey, we can make this last for another 100 years. Right? Take
yeah.
that out of there and
Yeah.
then tell me what the numbers are.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to keep it safe. But you don't want to.
I want to fall into the barge that's dismantling it on the day that the barge slides under it. I'm concerned that Kerry is working on a suspension bridge when we're all imagining a different
Someone
structure.
behind him.
We could do a miniaturized version.
Okay,
If he can do that for 500 million, we'll sign.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
I would want maintenance on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the painting.
well,
cost.
the painting,
painting.
continuous painting, yeah.
Okay, so Mayor McBride, anything that you?
No, I don't have anything.
Nothing, and you have a Catherine,
Yep.
Mayor Kiewit is there now.
Oh, and let's go to Marla. Do you have anything you want to closing remarks?
I think we lost
I
Marla.
think we lost her.
Yeah, this is everyone. that's-
Mayor Kiewit, do you have any final thoughts?
Hey, guys. I've been listening, even though I haven't chimed in very much. I guess the only thing I wanted to add is with increasing tolls with the current bridge, it disproportionately affects low-income residents of the area. And since I represent a large portion of those folks, I just wanted to reiterate that. I know I seem like I'm always saying the same thing, but there's not a good way for them to get across the bridge for free by walking or riding a bike. And so my preference would be to delay toll increases until there is an opportunity to allow people to to cross the river without being charged a toll. So that's obviously the way that I'm leaning towards. And I'm just trying to speak on behalf of the people that don't have the means to pay a toll. And so I just wanted to throw that out there that it's
Mayor, I think that's something we've got to consider. Maybe you can think a little bit about how could we qualify people to know, yeah, this person should be given a discount card or something. How do we do that? And what would be the cutoff? So maybe noodle about that a little bit, and as we go forward, That's got to be one of the discussions that we have.
Comes up every time you talk about tolls.
And the buses are currently exempt from tolls. So,
And you can currently bus across the bridge with that out of transportation in the cap.
Commissioner Chapman, any final closing thoughts?
I think she's gone.
Okay, she's gone.
Yeah, that's the only people who are here now.
Okay. All right, with that, are we good to close out?
Good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, I got one for you real quick, and maybe Mike.